Welcome. We're back in session with your host Jay of What's Going On, a Social Studies Network podcast. Now let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of What's Going On, the Social Studies Network podcast. Today we have.
I am Ms. Bell, Ms. Diamond Bell. I am a special education classroom assistant at Boucher Elementary. I have been here for the past 4 years. I just finished up my licensure program with Chicago State. And I will be working next year with grades 6 through 12, depending on what school I'm at. I also have a bachelor's in history and a master's in history from Florida A&M University.
Okay, so this is great. I know we just had a little conversation about your background and what you've been doing within the schools. But before we get into all of that, the first question I like to ask my guests. Oh, wait, no, the very first question. How are you doing right now? How are you doing today? We just talked about it being cold and you being from Florida. Like, how are you feeling?
I am a little under the weather, but we have 7 days left before school ends. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to get some sunshine, some good weather, and good food.
Yeah, it's gonna be hot soon. You gonna feel that weather soon. You're gonna get comfortable. But the question that I like to ask is, what did you think about social studies before your position now? And what do you think about versus what do you think about social studies right now in this present moment?
I would say growing up, I had the best teachers. Even with the best teachers, social studies, I did well in social studies, but it was pretty boring for me.
Mm,
I also went to a school that predominantly the demographics did not look like me.
mm-hmm,
And maybe it was certain history I was not interested in.
mm-hmm.
It was not until I went to FAMU and I had the great history professors that I have, Dr. Young and Dr. Ellis. And I just grown an interest to history,
Mm-hmm.
just learning about my history and other people's history, because I
Definitely.
think it's a reflection of who we are today and how can we move forward.
Yeah, I think is you know what, when I talk to a lot of people about their experience, something that's different. This is like one of the only people that say this, that you had great teachers, even though the subject was boring. You had great teachers, and I feel like it makes all the difference when you have beautiful teachers. Even if the subject you don't like it, something will still be ingrained within you because of the fact that you had those good teachers. I would like to think that I was pretty fortunate in my social studies education, but I do know that when it comes to social studies, there's a lot of harm going on. The teachers didn't really make space for questions. They didn't make space for a broad variety of history
Mhm.
and of social studies.
Gotcha.
I know that the little conversation that we were having, you said that you're a speaker um educator. Tell me more about that.
Oh,
What does
so
that look
I'm
like?
a special education classroom assistant. I work in a general education classroom. I help students who may have certain behaviors, emotional disturbances sometimes
Mm-hmm.
while learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so my job is to assist them.
Mm-hmm.
Assist them, whether it's I never modify work, but I usually accommodate by giving them breaks.
Mm.
And not only them, but most of the students based off the pandemic coming back to school
Mm-hmm.
was a lot. Being sitting in the classroom, relearning how to sit in the classroom
Yeah.
was a lot. So they need the same amount of breaks as well, even though they may not have the paperwork for it or a
Mm-hmm.
disability for it. Just some of the strategies that I would use for one, I use for all
Okay,
because I like to include everybody.
definitely. I know that you like to include everybody. Now, I know because my grandma's an educator and she's been in the education world for forever now. You know, we talked about students who don't have paperwork and we talk about terms like diverse learner. Could you go into what do breaks look like? What is the term diverse learner? And what does it look like to support students who don't necessarily have the proper paperwork to say they need this accommodation?
Okay, so I would start off with first, I think everyone is diverse learner. I
Mhm.
think I'm a diverse learner. Diverse learner is some just a person who learns differently than others,
Mhm.
which is everyone. You know,
Yes,
if I put everyone in a classroom and only want to teach them one way, maybe only 3 out of the 30 students make it. Those
definitely.
3 together are diverse learners, but everybody else has to find their own niche or
Mhm.
what how they can learn. So that's a diverse learner. You said that how do I assist students
Mhm.
without paperwork? So I when I first start working with the student, of course, you know, we start with their grade level work.
Mhm.
Um, I just want to see where they're at
Mhm.
just to see where they're at, see if they can write their name, see if they know how to spell their name.
Mhm.
And then you have different materials for different levels.
Mhm.
So for a student who does not, particularly if a student don't know how to spell their name, they're not really that great in writing as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
So we're starting from the scratch. We're starting with letter sounds and identifying your letters.
Mhm.
And then we're going to move on to just particular small sight words. So maybe it may be sight words for pre-K and kindergarten,
Mhm.
so we can move you up. But then you have some students who can read some sight words,
Mhm.
but they're just not on grade level. And that's when you just continue to build a vocabulary by having to read every day. You have to expose kids. If students are
Yeah,
not exposed, they don't know.
right.
You don't know what you don't know. And so just having them exposed to work that is on their level, on the grade level, and
Mhm.
even above grade level.
Mhm.
Because if you have that exposure, if they're used to seeing the same word, they are going to know it.
Definitely. I love that you said everyone is a diverse learner because I feel like I've been, one of those exceptionally well students that different educators have told me. And I remember like being in if I'm in a classroom setting and I'm bored or I'm struggling a little bit or I don't know what's going on, I feel bad. And I feel like I'm supposed to be this smart student. I'm supposed to be this excellent student. I'm this student that educators and my family have built up to get all A's and be in higher level classes. And so when I falter, I'm like, dang, am I slow? Like, am I dumb? Like, what's going on? Like, I'm supposed to be the smart student. Like, why am I not getting everything the first time? And I think that speaks to everybody being a diverse learner because sometimes the way a teacher teaches it might not reach me in that lesson. It might another lesson might reach me. I remember when I was in middle school and my math teacher, he was like during parent teacher conferences, he was like, she's a very bright student and she knows everything when it's on the board. But then when I erase everything off the board and she has to take a test or tell me without things on the board, she can't do it. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize like I'm a visual learner.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can't, it goes in one ear and out the other. Sometimes it depends on what it is, but
Mm.
um,
Yeah, I think it's I would say most people don't realize what kind of learners they are until adulthood,
mhm,
until you have to figure stuff out on your own or have to
mhm,
learn something on your own without somebody telling you that this is how you should learn this.
mhm,
And so sadly, that's the case for a lot of adults.
mhm,
But for me, I would like to have my classroom in a way just different style of learning.
mhm,
We are not gonna learn the same way every time.
definitely.
And so I want you to figure out what's comfortable for you.
Mhm,
I wanna realize, like, okay, if I have them do student-led conversations and discussions, and I have majority of my students understanding their classmates
mhm,
better than me, I'm gonna have student-led discussions
definitely.
a lot more than teacher-led discussions.
Mhm,
Just small things like that,
mhm,
because if you don't try to have different styles and you only have one way, you're only
mhm.
gonna reach a small group of people.
Okay, I definitely wanna come back to this conversation. There's something when you talked about the breaks, I wanna backtrack a little bit. What do breaks look like?
Okay, so breaks, for instance, I was just working with one of my beautiful students. He has emotional behavior, so sometimes he may have small tantrums just
Mhm,
based off
mhm,
just how he's feeling today. We were working on an exam. He had to write. I realized he was frustrated. He had a 2-minute break.
Mhm.
Hey, chill, don't think about it. Took his paper, took the pencil.
Mhm.
When my timer went off, now it's back to work.
Mhm.
It's just to give you a break from what you're doing.
Mhm.
But you always have to go back.
Mhm.
Students like that, sadly, because I work with first grade,
Mhm.
that's when they're starting to learn their emotions. And so sometimes those behaviors at home can be a lot on parents.
Mm.
And so a lot of parents give in to, oh, you don't want to do it? Okay. And they don't ever go back to it.
Hmm.
And so, which is a lot for parents. And then sometimes they don't know strategies to use. So I'm more family involved with my students. Whatever I do here, I expect you to do at home.
Yes.
Because if he go home and I have to retrain him again and again every day, he's not going to be able to learn anything.
Mhm.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So it's more like I'm helping them. For the first, I had him since last year. So
Mhm.
I've had him since last year for kindergarten. He's never been in school. So it's a lot of things that I had to restructure.
Mhm.
He had to learn this is a classroom. This is what we do. This is a schedule. Um, that's why. So breaks are for the student to gain back control
Mhm.
of learning.
Oh, I love that getting back control of learning.
So, yes, I understand you need a break. I understand this may be frustrating, take a break, but we always go back
Mhm.
because in real life, I mean, even when I want a break from work, you still got to go back to work.
Definitely.
And I like to compare. I always like to do things in real world concept.
Mhm.
I don't want to do stuff and it's like it's only going to be in school. Like, no, you have to be on time for school because you have to be on time for work.
Yeah.
Right? I told my high school students, like, they used to hang out in the hallways all day. And, like, you hang out in the hallways so long, you're gonna be hanging out on the street for so
Mhm.
long. Like, that's what it represents in a society.
Mhm.
So, be on work, be at school on time, come to school prepared,
Mhm.
right? Because I have to come to work prepared.
Definitely.
So, it's like I like to connect that because a lot of my seniors when I was student teaching, they struggled
Yeah.
real bad, and a lot of them was like, "We only got a few days left. I'm kinda scared after graduate, what's next?"
Mm, yeah.
And I don't that wasn't a good feeling to hear that, because it's like, "What do you mean, what's next?" What? We had time to figure this out, so, that's why kids need break, but I think
Yeah.
everybody needs a break, it's just not just kids.
I think what's beautiful about what you said through all of that is how you're family oriented. I know as a future educator, as I've said, I like to say that a lot. I want to be very family oriented. I want to be very family involved. Like no matter who I can get a connection to, whether it be older brother, older sister, mom, dad, grandpa, auntie, uncle, I want to make sure I have that connection because I don't only want my student to look at me as, oh, teacher, 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 classroom, school. I want them to know that I have a connection to this teacher. This teacher cares about me and I also want their family to know they're not being left out of the process.
Yeah.
You're just as important as your student in this classroom. You're just as important as me in this classroom. You're just as important as administration in this school. And so I think that is beautiful that you take that approach so that way, you have a better connection with them because when big emotions in little bodies, they
Yeah,
can explode when
and
people
not
don't.
not just even with the emotions, I
Mhm.
use it for more so. You have parents that don't understand what level of reading their child is on because it
Mhm.
was never told to them. They were told their child probably couldn't read, but they never were told what level of reading they were on.
Mm.
Everybody has a level, whether they can read or not. You still
Mhm.
have a level that you're on. And then nobody tells them what level they should be on. They
Mhm.
should be able to compare the different words of, okay, I see how if they learn this, this will build onto this. I
Mhm.
think parents also need to know that
Definitely.
as well. Like they need to know the different platforms, technology platforms that you're using. Like I had a parent
Mhm.
tell me they didn't know how to use Google Classroom
Hmm.
for my high school students. Like their child was showing them all the work that they turned in, but they
Mhm.
wasn't showing them the grade that they received. And so in their mind, it's like,
Oh.
oh, I see that he turned in work. I was like, oh no, let me show you exactly how you can see the grade that he
Mhm.
received. And then once I showed, it was more like she was on it. She was
Hmm.
like, hey, she was emailing me like, hey, I see that he didn't do this. Don't worry, I'm gonna make sure he does it. But that's more the connection I want because my family was involved.
Mine's too.
I couldn't go home with a C, and I reflected on this. I said, "Parents are not as involved," and I know that because for report card, for progress reports, they give them to the kids.
Right.
I mine got sent home. So
Mhm.
I had to beat I had if I had a C, I had to rush home to get it out the mail before my mama seen it,
Yeah.
right? Because your parents usually are at home, before
Yeah.
you are. So it's just that connection. They don't understand that.
Yeah.
There's no connection with the student and the parent anymore. It's more like the kid gets
Mhm.
everything
Mhm.
and they put it on the kid
Mhm.
to get show their parent their bad grade.
Mm.
And if I was the same kid, I'm not showing my parent that. I'm just being honest. So
I most def had a village helping me, like, with school. You know, my grandma, she always knew where report card pickup was. She always had access to my student accounts. So it was like if she wasn't there, my uncle was there. If my uncle wasn't there, my dad was there. So if a report card pickup ready to see, and I always got good grades, so I wasn't worried about it. The only thing I was worried about was if I got a B, because my grandpa was like A's, and I'm like, I know. So like me and my grandma, we would be
yeah.
scheming low key, like, oh
Oh, just the notes on report
yeah,
cards. They don't leave those no more. The comments, no. You don't leave. You know, I used to have to Jimmy can't sit down. I have to talk to him several times. No, the comment section is usually empty, even for high school. So like parents don't know why their kid have
mm,
this. And
mm-hmm,
so I think once again, family involvement is very important.
mm-hmm. Okay, now I do want to go back because I said I will go back to this conversation about student led. So I know that you're going to be teaching 6th through 12th, depending on where you're going to be teaching at. What does student led look like for sixth graders or middle schoolers versus high schoolers? What would you want that to look like? Will it be the same parameters? Will it be different?
So it would be the same parameters, but of
Mm-hmm.
course the workload may look differently. So
Mm-hmm.
I would it would take for the first, I would say month and a half, maybe almost 2 months, just to show them the different styles of work we'll be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say student led, I would like, for instance, if I'm teaching them US Constitution, right? I have
Mm-hmm.
to teach them the Articles of Confederation first, right? The
Mm-hmm.
original before the Constitution, right? If I'm having them read maybe 2 to 3 pages of important people,
Mm-hmm.
that help with transforming from Articles of Confederation to Constitution, the dates, and just different facts, different rights that people got after Articles of Confederation to U.S. Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm having them read, I would have them read. I have one student stand in the front and read like they're the actual teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a class, we would have to come up with the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever questions we would have to highlight. I want you because what you may highlight on your paper, your other student, your other partner may not highlight because he
Mm-hmm.
knows the word, but you may not know that word.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you highlight, you have to basically give me your own definition of.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not even be a definition, maybe just be something that you can remember.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, okay, Bill of Rights. I know what this is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it will show I want them to see that everybody will be on different levels, but you can also learn from somebody
Mm-hmm.
else.
Now, when do you as the teacher come in and you play your role? Like, is it ever teacher led or is it student led, but with teacher assistance? What would
That
that look like?
I'm pushing more for student-led teacher assistance
Mhm,
because when Imma go back to real life. When you start work, your boss is not gonna be sitting there teaching you every day for
mm,
the next 10 years.
mhm,
They're gonna teach you the ropes for the first 2 weeks, right? Trainings are usually like the week or 2 weeks, depending on
right.
where you at. And then after that, you have somebody you work with.
Mhm,
And then after that, you're on your own. And then, of course, they assist you along the way if you have any questions.
mhm,
That's how I would like for it to work
mhm,
because I realized working with high school students who were used to teacher led,
mhm,
nothing but teacher led activities, they could not think of, they were not critical thinkers.
mm,
And I do think when you have teacher led discussions and lectures, I
mhm,
think it enables the student not to use their critical thinking skills.
mhm,
I like when students ask questions.
mhm,
You're only going to ask questions if I allow you to think on your own.
mm.
So
So
yeah.
So could you go a little bit more in depth of how do you open that space for them to feel comfortable asking questions? Because you coming in and you kind of disrupting the whole little ecosystem. How does that what does that look like?
Just letting them know that like I was told there was no such thing as a dumb question.
Mhm.
I do reiterate, if there is a such thing as a dumb question if I'm speaking and you're interrupting and you didn't hear anything I said. So then after that, you would like to ask me the same question. Now that I do. But I am very open to students asking questions, but
Mhm.
it's not about asking me questions.
Mhm.
I want you to learn from the people around you.
Mhm.
Because once again, even I work here. I don't go if I don't know something, I'm not gonna go email Dr. Young, the
Right.
principal. Imma go ask what? Who? My coworker. So
Mm.
I want you to get used to asking the people around you. I want you to pick their brain.
Mm. Mhm.
I want you to see if you missed something, even if you were not talking. Say you missed something because you did not comprehend it.
Mhm.
I want to see if you have, because 9 10, most kids have the confidence to ask another kid.
Mm. Mhm.
So that you build it first with them.
Mhm.
You have to make kids talk. You push that. And I know coming from pandemic, dealing with first grade, they were
Mhm.
never around children. So their first year
Mhm.
here, they were all in my face, asking me questions. And I loved it, don't get me wrong, but it's more like they didn't know how to have a conversation with their own.
Mhm.
And I want them to be used to that. So I push conversation. Oh,
Mhm.
Miss Bill, why does he go ask him? I don't know. I always say that. I don't know. And
Definitely.
that's what worked for college.
Mhm.
College, it wasn't even teacher for most of my history classes was not teacher led. It was student. It was
Right.
student led. We talked to each other. We had all had to read the same book. Everybody had their own interpretation. We
Mhm.
had to discuss it and break it down ourselves. And my
Mhm.
teacher was there, but you know my teacher said he wasn't gonna do? He does not give opinions.
Mm.
He does not give his bias. He wants you to do it on your own
Mhm.
because that's what history is, your own interpretation about what information I gave you and what are you willing to do with it.
I see some of what you said reflected in my student observing experience. I was in a middle school and about kids not interacting with each other because of the pandemic. Now I was with the eighth graders and seventh graders, and she was saying a lot of them were in the pandemic during some very important years and some very developmental years, which I feel like anytime you're in elementary school and middle school, those are very important years to develop social interactions, brain development. She was like a lot of them for like fourth, fifth, sixth grade, they were in the pandemic, and then some of the students were in sixth grade, they were in third, fourth, and fifth
Yeah, they
in
missed
the
a
pandemic,
lot.
and they missed a lot of interaction. They missed a lot of in the classroom. This is the time where you're building, like, oh, okay, let's. If we have a lot of energy, what do we do with that? Because now they're in seventh, eighth grade, going to high school, and it just seemed like some of them are just a little. I don't want to say behind. I never want to say kids are behind because
I
I
think
wanna build them up to get not behind, but, it
you can build it. I always tell people, I know we are in the age of censoring feelings,
Mhm,
but even with me, and I had some low self-esteem when I was a kid, okay?
mhm,
But I did my best. I did the best when people were honest, but
mhm,
truth when they were honest but nice.
mhm,
You can still be honest and nice. You
mhm,
don't have to be, "Oh, you can't read." No. "Hey, sweetheart, we are reading right now at this level,
mhm,
and you are at this level. My job is to get you to this level. But in order for me to do my job, I also need your assistance.
mhm,
I need you to participate.
mhm,
I need your attendance."
mhm,
Right? That's how. So I told them the truth. I told them the same thing,
definitely.
but it's just in a way that they will understand. That's how you build up kids. But I don't think it does any justice to not
Mhm,
let a kid know
mm, mhm,
because a lot of kids really don't know
yeah,
where they're at. I had high school students that could not fill out an application
mm,
for a job, and
mhm,
we graduating. And so that goes from years of teachers not telling them in
mhm,
the proper manner, "Hey, no, you cannot do this. These are the steps we need to take to do
mhm,
this." Yes, kids know they can't do stuff, but the thing is, my job as a teacher is to provide them the steps,
mhm,
show them the way, and then that's it. And that's how my students, I think, will learn from student led is I
mhm,
have to show it.
right,
I'm honestly, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm gonna act like a student for the first 2 months.
mm,
I'm gonna ask a lot of questions. I wanna get to know you.
Mhm.
Man, I want you to see how I respond. I was raised, I'm the adult, this is how I talk, you talk like this.
Mm.
My mind is, I talk to you where I wanna be spoken to.
Mhm.
And so even working with high school, they loved me the most because and I had a great time there because they even said it, "You respect me." Why would I wouldn't dare wanna talk to anybody differently than how I'm did you know what I'm saying? How I wanna
Definitely,
be spoken to.
definitely.
And so even if you are a kid or younger, whatever the case
Mhm.
may be, no, Imma treat you with the utmost respect.
Mhm. I seen my cooperating teacher take that same approach. Her demographic of students that she taught was a little bit different because there were students who came from different countries. Majority of them Spanish speaking countries like Guatemala, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Honduras, places like that. And even the students from Guatemala, they spoke the indigenous language there, which is not Spanish. And when she was telling me, oh, they have to read the series books, like first, second, third grade books. And I'm like, oh, they're in eighth grade, seventh grade, sixth grade. How do you tell them that they're reading at this level? And she was like, well, I sat them down and I had an honest conversation with them. I said, this is where you are. This is my job to get you to this place. I'm going to be talking with your parents. I'm going to be speaking with staff, letting them know how they can assist me and help you all out. And this is where we're going to work to. And a lot of them have went from kindergarten level to third grade reading level, and
Cause it's different. I
mhm,
would say the difference between somebody who speaks a different language
mhm,
is not the fact that they can't read.
exactly.
You give them their language, they can probably read on grade level.
Hmm.
They're learning a new
Yeah.
language, and you want them to read in the new language.
Hmm.
But the difference between that student and a student who is from here,
Hmm.
who's been around the language, but they never been taught the steps on how to read.
Mm.
They talk all day, but if you can't identify the words that you use on a daily basis,
Mhm.
that means you have not had anything in front of you that reflected how you talk.
Mhm.
And so that's the difference. Like they're learning from the basic scratch of, I don't know how to read
Mhm.
my language. The students she had, they could not read the new language that they were being taught. But
Mhm.
I bet you if you would have gave them a book and their language, that you said Guatemala, they probably could have read on grade level.
Definitely.
And so it is a big difference. And so that's my push because I do remember struggling reading when I was in
Mhm.
third grade, but I also, like I said, I had great teachers. I had some very interactive, like they don't have homework anymore, which is crazy. Homework is not a it's not a
Like in
it's
any other
not
class?
required in high school, and the only
Oh.
ones that really have it is honors.
Mhm.
And it was more like I had a student tell me like, "I can't do this. I" I was like, "You only have a certain time span to learn this.
Mhm.
You do it at home. That's what
Mhm.
homework was for, it's for practice.
Mhm.
You may not like homework, but that means you don't like to practice either.
Hmm.
And if you don't practice, then it's not about perfect, it's about getting better."
Mhm.
And so I can't that's something that was instilled in me, like, we had to do homework.
Definitely.
They don't have to do homework, so they don't get why they don't get it. So, like, it's taking them even longer to get something that I learned in 2 weeks because I had homework.
Mhm.
It's taking them about a month and a half to get it
Mm.
because they don't have it.
Mhm.
And I don't want them to get into real life, that's not real life.
Mhm.
You're gonna have work everybody said they work home. I don't care if you even work for fast food. Everybody takes their work home some way, somehow.
Mhm.
You're thinking about how can you make your day, a better year when you go home.
Yeah.
So the fact that that's not being practiced now
Mhm.
scares me into what it will be later.
Mhm. And with you have a pretty diverse range of grades that you've been going to. So going from first graders to middle schoolers or high schoolers, what do you envision your classroom looking like? Besides student-led conversations, what else do you envision for your classroom and how
I
do
want a
you
classroom of curiosity.
Mhm.
I want my students like I had the best science teacher. His name is Mr. Brower. He lives in Japan right now.
Mm.
His classroom, when you walked, he had guinea pigs and domo rats and he, generators that we used. We had different things that was important. It
Mhm.
seemed like a lot, but we used them.
Mhm.
I want my classroom to look like that.
Yeah.
I want you to know how it is to because like I don't think kids ever seen important documents being handled.
Hmm.
and how you have to put on the gloves and take it out the box and make sure you don't rip it, and you can't sweat, you can't chew gum, and you have to sit there and you have to read something that a slave wrote long
Mhm.
time ago, and they still have it. I want them to know. I want to know what microfilm is.
Mhm.
Microfilm was not in my time, that was in my parents' time and
Right.
their parents' time. I want them to know what that is. I want you to know that those are resources out here if you want to learn something about things that you thought was non-existent, because everybody is on everything's on internet now.
Mhm.
But you can go to your local library and they have stuff just based on the community.
Mhm.
Like, you can look at your old apartment building and see it used to be something else a long time. I want you to know that.
Yeah.
And I want you to know those resources. So my classroom, I would love for it to look like not your typical library. I want it to be a historical library.
Mhm.
I want it to be, I want you to know how to use different things.
Mhm.
And yeah, we can do US Constitution for 8th grade, but I also want you, if you have a favorite hip hop artist that you like so much, I want you to look at hip hop artists that came before him.
Yeah.
I want you to look at an interview that he did and look at what hip hop artists he like and look at those.
Mm.
I want dance. A lot of kids love to dance, especially TikTok.
Yes.
I want you to look at the different dances that people do
Mhm.
and where they get them from. I want you to explore. I feel like when you learn how to explore as a kid, you're gonna have endless
Yes.
opportunities. 'Cause it's once again critical thinking. It's more like, what else can I do? What else can I learn? How else
Mhm.
can I learn? So I would like for my classroom to like different centers. You have a computer station, you have a research station, you have a game station. Like, I would love to make a card game like spades. My high school students
Please.
love, I don't even know how to play spades. My
Oh my
students play
gosh,
spades
please.
all day. And I just want to put history questions on in order for you to make the next move or drop whatever card, you have to answer the question.
Yes.
If not, you can't even go. Like, that's I
I mean,
wanted to be
spades is history itself. I'm tired of being with black people and my friends, and they can't be my spades partner. Like, come on, man. I need someone at this
no,
table with me.
it's fun, but I also want students to know that, like, I don't know how to play spades. I always like, oh, you need your black card revoked, right? But I also want them to know that, like, being black, because I would love to work in a school predominantly with students that look like me, right?
Yes.
That I represent. I want to know that being black is not just spades,
Yes, definitely.
right? It's not just spades. Like, my people, I am from Florida, but my people are Gullah Geechee.
Mm.
So, like, they from South Carolina, they from the Gullah Gullah Island, that's those people. I
Mhm.
want you to know the different people inside of the US, because a
Yes.
lot of people feel as though like, oh, they wanna learn about Africa, of course, but, like, it's so many different beautiful, different, like,
Yes.
different neighborhoods and cultures you can learn in Chicago.
Mhm.
Like, me being here, I've learned so many. I have the
Yes.
West Side, South Side, East Side,
Different cultures. Black people are not a monolith, okay?
and so I want that's my goal, to build vocabulary that's gonna represent you later on.
Definitely. This has been a very wonderful conversation. I want to thank you for
You're
joining me.
welcome.
And before we end, something that I like to ask my guests to do is
Mhm.
drop some knowledge. What is something that you want the people to take? You dropped a lot of knowledge, a lot of good knowledge, but that one thing.
Um, support students in the way that you wanna be supported when you were
Yes.
their age. That's the biggest takeaway. Support and encourage students. I am realistic.
Mm-hmm.
I hear how certain students getting talked to by
Mm-hmm.
parents at home,
Mm-hmm.
and your student don't need to hear every day that, "Oh my gosh, you can't read. Oh my gosh, you showed up today."
Yeah,
Encourage a student to be here, and they will make they will make your experience worthwhile.
definitely. And
Encourage them to do that. And they will change their mindset. They will believe, they will have hope, and it will make your day a lot easier.
yes. And I think for my knowledge of this conversation, I will take is what you said, be truthful but nice. It is not helpful for students to not tell them the truth about who they are, because I think at that point It's not only what we're saying, it's what we're not saying. We think that they can't handle the truth, but they can. We have to put that trust back
Coddling.
into, yes, we got to put that trust back into our students to be able to have that courage within them to move forward and to continue to learn and grow and want to be pushed. So be truthful, but nice. Our students don't need to be coddled, but they do need support. Again, thank you so much.
You're
This,
welcome.
look, you've been dropping some truths. Thank you.
You're
I really
welcome.
appreciate that because I feel like I was that teacher that was gonna be coddling people. But this has opened my mind and my heart to doing so much more. Thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of What's Going On, a Social Studies Network podcast. Peace.